help support the Black Alliance for Peace and our solidarity rally with Haiti. It's an international rally today. So across the world and across the country, people are protesting in support. But I want to talk a little bit about Black Alliance for Peace. This Sunday will be our 4th year. We'll be 4 years old this Sunday. And I have been with Black Alliance for Peace for 3 years. And in the 3 years that I have been in Black Alliance for Peace, we have done a tremendous job of reigniting the anti-war tradition that is of the past, excuse me. We've done a tremendous job of getting people to talk about AFRICOM, reigniting internationalism, Pan-Africanism, things that people swore were dead. And so we have, I'm very proud of the organization. I'm very proud of the work that we've been doing all month in solidarity of Haiti. We were at the embassy on the 1st, we were at OAS on the 15th, and today we are outside the State Department because we are showing tremendous solidarity with Haiti. They want the core group out. So we are hitting up all the core group spots and asking them to get out of Haiti.
I'm ready for the revolution, so you can't ask me if I'm ready. I got to be ready. All right, how's y'all doing today? Y'all out there? All right, my name is Rafiki Morris, and I'm an organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We're here today, and throughout the day, you're going to get a bunch of information about what's happening in Haiti. I'm also a member of the Coordinating Council of the Black Alliance for Peace. And I want you to take note of the information that you get. I want you to process the information that you get. Because right now, in this day, at this time, in this place, there's no longer an excuse for ignorance. Them days is gone. Everything you want to know is in your pocket. All the information you need to find out what's going on in the world around you is on that smartphone. And the question is, are you smart enough to use that phone to find out what you need to know to understand what's going on to you in the world today? Haiti, right now, has a dictator who decided he didn't want to leave office. And so the people have risen up to let him know that they ain't taking that. But the struggle in Haiti is not just about this one president. Because it was a president before him, and a president before him, and a president before him, and a president before him. Going all the way back to 1804. In fact, the Haitians have been fighting for the same thing since before 1804, because they fought when they put them on them ships to ship them to Haiti. And it's the same thing they're fighting for right now, freedom. We hear a lot of people talking about rights, but you don't have no rights if you ain't free.
That's right.
A slave don't have no rights. A sharecropper, they don't have no rights. Black people in America, you ain't got no rights because you ain't free. The first condition for getting your rights is getting your liberty, getting your freedom, being in control of your own destiny. This is what the fight in Haiti is all about. And whether you understand it or not, they fighting for your freedom. Because Haiti has always been in the forefront of our people in this hemisphere fight for freedom. Is that right?
Right.
They was, back when they was having bows and arrows and spears, they was the tip of the spear. They was the top of the arrow. Now they the hollow point bullet shell that's blowing up imperialism. They're at the forefront. They're teaching all of us, we who have the least can fight the hardest and fight the best. So if they can fight in Haiti with nothing, what you doing? What are we doing? We gotta get ourselves motivated, organized, and mobilized to do our part. The best thing we can do for Haiti is to organize ourselves to fight these pigs right here who's oppressing Haiti. Is that right? Because that's your tax dollars that's putting bullets in them guns that they shooting in the communities of Haiti. It's your tax dollars that pays for the tear gas that they spray on people when they stand up and say, I want to be free. It's your tax dollars who fund that dictator who's down there right now denying the people of Haiti of their rights. So we have two objectives today. One, to tell these pigs in the State Department, like we told these pigs in the Organization of American States and what we told them at the Haitian embassy, we come to tell you once again, get your bloody hands off of our people. Get your bloody hands off of Haiti. Get your bloody hands off of Africa. Get your bloody hands off of Southeast Washington, D.C. These days is over. And we want to let you know we know who you are and we know what you're doing. But the other thing we're doing here today, which might be a little bit more important, is that we networking. We're taking people's names. We're connecting to each other. We're building a movement, y'all. We're building a movement. Right now, it's small and it's taking baby steps. But the more we build, the more we communicate, the more we learn, because you gotta learn out here, then the stronger the movement's gonna be. So we can do two things at one time. We can condemn this U.S. government and support the people of Haiti, and we can also organize ourselves to fight for our freedom, because we ain't free yet, and we got to keep the fight going. I just want to end real quick. I know I'm taking a little more time than I planned, but I want to read y'all something. It's a poem.
Okay.
This poem is called For the Comfortable Ones. This poem is for the comfortable ones, for the bureaucrats who exist to ensure their existence, for the civil servants who are not civil and do not serve, for the teachers who teach what to think but don't know how to think, for the policemen who serve capital and protect property, for the doctors selling health, the lawyers selling justice, the politicians selling their souls, for the upwardly mobile, down-pressing, respectable, well-mannered individualists, for the used-to-be's, claim-to-be's, and wannabes. This poem's for the wealthy ones, for their peace-absent justice, structurally adjusted debt servicing, payment balancing, neoliberal globalization. For the owners, spoilers, movers, shakers, high rollers and day traders. For the money changers and their armies of analysts, managers, lawyers, accountants, and consultants. For the Barclays, Gateses, Oppenheimers, and Rockefellers. For placing profit above the progress, markets above development, and the bottom line above human life. This poem is for the rulers, for the invisible government behind the government, the transnationals behind the invisible government, and the class behind the transnationals behind the invisible government behind the government. For the puppet makers, the puppeteers, the puppets, and the ties that bind them. This poem is for the acronyms. For the UN, WB, USA, IMF, WTO, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, TNT, FBI, CIA, MI6, NATO, OAS, AU, IRS, NSA, SSEEC, BBC, VOA, CBC, and the whole damn imperialist alphabet. This poem is for Mr. In-Between, for the brown-nosing, mediating, facilitating, vacillating, arbitrating, negotiation, yes, bossing, butt-kissing, fence-sitting, liberal reformers, opportunist middlemen. For the used-to-be revolutionaries, the ex-socialists, the former Marxists, the retired Black Panthers, the ex-Pan-Africanists, ex-nationalists, was once anti-this, that, and the other thing, militant turned content to change the system from withiners. This poem is for the intellectuals, for the reactionary right-wing ideologues, philosophers, metaphysicians, theologians, think tankers, propagandists, producers, agents, writers, lyricists, poets, novelists, editors, publishers, printers, historians, sociologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, market managers, and wholesale and retail distributors of the sham, the lie, and the cruel hoax. This poem is for the spies, for the intelligence agencies, for the operatives, for the informants, the infiltrators, the eavesdroppers, the wiretappers, the video surveillances, the satellite photographers, the record keepers, the data analysts, the posters, and the privacy invaders. This poem is for the patriarchs. I'm gonna say that again. Yes, this poem is for the patriarchs, for the sexists, the kings, chiefs, husbands, sons, fathers, brothers, who think they are better than the mothers, daughters, sisters, wives, grandmothers, and those with non-binary gender identities, for the macho men, enabling women and oppressors of the human spirit, for the pimps, rapists, and violent physical and mental abusers, for the exploiters of labor, the unequal pay, for the devaluation of family management and the essential social labor, for the nation's class and gender enemies. This poem is for the mercenaries, for the armies of armies, for the murderers, torturers, assassins, thieves, sellouts, backstabbers, ethnic cleansers, provocateurs, saboteurs, environmental terrorists, Judas-like double-dipping both ends against the middle, goes to the highest bidder, dealing death squad goons and self-serving thugs. If you stand among the patriarchs, wealthy rulers, and their acronyms, middlemen, intellectuals, spies, and mercenaries, you are one of the comfortable ones. And this poem is for you. This poem does not ask you to relinquish your comfort. It does not implore you to care. It does not tell you of the immorality of your actions. It is not to inform you of the consequences of your exploits. This poem does not want to reform you, educate you, or beg you to change. This poem is to let you know that we see you, we hear you, we scrutinize your every action, and we are recording your every crime. This poem is a literary arrow let fly in the world of words with the conscious intent of penetrating your subconscious to plant a seed of doubt and interrupts and disrupts your repose, arrests and upsets your peace and quiet and intrudes upon your contentment. This poem is the malignant concept that penetrates your calm demeanor and silently grows into the terminal cancerous result of your conspiracy against humanity. This poem is meant to disturb. This poem is meant to disturb you. This poem is meant to disturb your comfort. So when you lie down to sleep each night, please think of this poem and remember, it was written just for you. Thank you very much.
Peace, people, peace. Thank you so much for coming out today in solidarity with the people of Haiti. My name is Jacqueline Luqman. I am one half of Luqman Nation, the other half Mayor Baptist Luqman. I'm also a co-host of By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik with my host Sean Blackmon back there, and also a member of the Black Power Media team with the Jared Ball over there. Where'd he go?
Jared Ball was
he was over here somewhere. But listen, I want to talk about internationalism for a minute. And the need for us to understand that what happens to working class and poor and oppressed people around the world is always, always, always directly connected to us. In every instance, I don't care what country it happens in. If we are talking about standing in solidarity with the people of Haiti, and people have a problem with that, and they say, well, what do I have to do with these people in Haiti? Well, first of all, they were the people who led the first and only successful slave rebellion in the history of the world. They were, as Max said, were the first democracy, the first country. They freed themselves. And so when you look at it from that perspective, what does that have to do with us? Well, how did we get here? I'm not ashamed of my heritage as a person of African descent whose ancestors were dropped on these shores because of the same slave trade that the Haitians rose up against.
That's right.
I'm proud of that connection because that rebellion runs in my blood.
That's right.
So Haiti and the people of Haiti have been punished ever since for daring to defeat not just the English, not just the French, but the British as well. And to tell the United States, no, we will not become another colony for you. And fought against it all this time. So that's one connection right there. And then when we talk about what's going on in Haiti right now, look at the way wages are suppressed. I mean, we're fighting for $15 an hour in this country. In Haiti, they fought for 61 cents.
Talk about it.
And the people in this building colluded with businesses and corporate owners and politicians to take that from them. Which politician? How about Hillary Clinton? How about the Clinton Foundation? And how about Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris have done or said anything to rectify that? So how are we here in this country claiming that we are fighting, excuse me, for fair wages, a decent wage for working people, a living wage, and ignore the fact that even working people in Haiti are still working for starvation wages? How can we ignore that? We cannot. You know how I know we can't ignore it? How many of you wear Hanes underwear? Don't tell me how many of you actually wear Hanes underwear. Don't want to know. But that's how common this issue is. The food we eat. Haitians have the most arable land closest to the United States. They can't even grow their own food to feed themselves. Agriculture corporations have taken over the very land. And they grow food that is exported. Where do you think a lot of it comes to? Right here. When you talk about Haiti, you wonder what Venezuela has to do with anything. Why should I care about Haiti? Well, if you care about Haiti, you should care about Venezuela because Jovenel Moïse stole the money from the Petrocaribe program that Venezuela set up to assist the people of Haiti. And then when you want to make further connections, how about the connections between Venezuela and Iran, Venezuela and China, Venezuela and Russia? These are all countries that are anti-imperialist in nature and are all targets of U.S. anti-democratic propaganda campaigns, calling them all communists, making up a whole bunch of human rights abuses. But they are all countries that oppose imperialism. And Haiti is the vanguard for that. So as an African in America, I am connected to the Haitian people. As a working class and poor person who is in solidarity with working class and poor people, I'm connected to the Haitian people. And I'm connected to all the people in Venezuela, in China, in Iran, in Brazil, in El Salvador, in other countries that are rising up against U.S. imperialism and fighting for self-determination. And honestly, just as a human being who understands that it is the human right for self-determination that this country claims it honors, but has never allowed another country to have, I'm also connected to Haiti. We cannot win this fight against this system without international solidarity. So I'm here in support of the people of Haiti for a whole lot of reasons, but mainly because this system has to end.
That's right.
Peace, people. All power to the people.
Don't compromise.
No retreat.
All right, thank you so much, Nana. How y'all feeling? My name is Sean Blackmon. I'm here representing the Answer Coalition. That means Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. And I want to thank our comrades at the Black Alliance for Peace so much for continuing to keep the fire burning on this very important issue. It's a beautiful day to struggle, y'all, and I'm glad about it. And you know, I like so much what the sister from Undocu Block was saying about how we have to lift up this message of free Haiti now. Don't just free Haiti, but free Haiti now. Let's get that going. Let me hear you say free Haiti now.
Free Haiti now.
Free Haiti now. Say it.
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
What?
Free Haiti now.
And it is imperative that we say free Haiti now and call for an end to the neo-colonial dictatorship of Jovenel Moïse in Haiti that is only able to remain in place because it has the support of the chief imperial power on the world today, the government of the United States. When Martin Luther King talked about the U.S. being the greatest purveyor of violence on the world, he didn't just mean dogs being sicked on innocent people in the streets. He wasn't just talking about police violence. He wasn't just talking about lynching. He was talking about the inhumanity of imperialism and war. That's why he talked about the triple evils of war, white supremacy, and economic exploitation. This is what we're seeing in Haiti. And why is it that the U.S. is so determined to keep this country from being independent, from having sovereignty, for developing? The same reason why the U.S. was involved in overthrowing Maurice Bishop in Grenada.
That's right.
The same reason that the U.S. continues its criminal unilateral blockade against Cuba. The same reason the U.S. has sanctions against Venezuela and Nicaragua. The U.S. does not want any kind of independence or strength in the Caribbean and in Latin America because that is a threat to the stranglehold that Washington has over the whole of this earth and its project to conquer all lands, resources, and peoples. And so we have to understand that this neo-colonial dictatorship that we're talking about is not just restricted to Haiti. We've got neo-colonialism right here in Washington, D.C.
That's right.
Because what is neo-colonialism? That's just when they take a native and put them in charge so that the same exploitation, the same repression, the same inhumanity can continue, but it's obscured because it looked different. And so in Washington, D.C., we have a mayor, a so-called progressive, Muriel Bowser. That's right, Muriel Bowser, who although she is a Black native Washingtonian, is a class enemy of Black folks in this city and has been the entire time she's been in office. Now, why do I say that? Because she continues to facilitate displacement and gentrification of Black folks in this city. I'm glad we've been talking about the Constitution of Haiti that talked about the issue of housing. Do you all know that in Washington, D.C., there are at least 10,000 empty housing units? Well, then why in the world is there a housing encampment right here? Why is there homelessness anywhere in this city? Why are there human beings living on the street eating out of trash cans? It's because housing, which should be a human right, is put towards the interest of capital. And if you can't pay, then you can't stay. This is the inhumanity of capitalism and the neo-colonial system. And so the same state repression that we're seeing in Haiti, we know what happened here in DC too. Jovenel Moïse sending the Haitian National Police and those other military agencies against the struggling people of Haiti, same way that Rhamier Auguste sent the DC police against protesters right here in this city, all during the summer, doing a rebellion against racism. And so, my friends, we have to understand that you and I are bound in a single garment of destiny with the people of Haiti, with the struggling peoples of this earth. And you and I will never be free as long as Haiti is chained. That's why we have to say, free Haiti now! Free Haiti now! Free Haiti now! What?
Free Haiti now!
What?
Free Haiti now!
What?
Free Haiti now!
And one last thing I want to say is that imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. And if what we want is an end to the neo-colonial dictatorship in Haiti, if what we want is an end to imperialism all across this world, then what we have to do is organize so that we can destroy the capitalist system that is at the root of it all. Thank you so much for listening. My name is...
First, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who stand in solidarity with Haiti today. And my sister. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
We know who we are. We know who we are. We don't need somebody to define who we are.
We don't need somebody to define who we are.
We know our culture.
We know our culture.
We know our heritage.
We know our heritage.
We know our history.
We know our history.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
A people united.
We'll never be defeated.
A people united.
We'll never be defeated.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
We talk about police brutality in America. We talk about police brutality in America. We talk about mercenaries. You know, the U.S. Embassy had the audacity to call the Haitian police officers who went on the ground to form a union, to ask for proper pay rate, to ask for better health care, to ask for better equipment so they can serve their community. They put out something on Twitter saying that the Phantoms are terrorists. But in 2019, about 7 former U.S. soldiers, Blackwater, you know what that means?
Yeah.
You know what Blackwater soldiers mean?
Mercenaries.
All right. They were in Haiti with heavy weapons, going toward the Haitian bank to hijack whatever we had in the bank. Miss Cecil escorted them out of Haiti without trial, without any charges. So who are the terrorists?
United States.
Who are the terrorists, people?
United States government.
All right. So how do you ask Haitian police officers who are on the street because they're not getting paid, because the resources they're supposed to use to protect the people are giving to gangs to go kill the people, and you call them terrorists? 13 of them have been fired and are in hiding. Lawyers, their lawyers are being arrested. The union leader is not taken by the dictator. He incarcerated. Nobody knows where they have taken him to. So we talk about terrorism. Who's the terrorist? Who's the terrorist? Who's the terrorist? Imperialism, we need to end. We need to edit. Imperialism need to end. We need to edit. Imperialism need to end. We need to edit. Imperialism need to end. We need to edit. Dictatorship needs to go. It needs to go. Dictatorship needs to go. It needs to go. Power to the people. Power to the people. Liberation of all political prisoners. Liberation of all political prisoners. Economic resources for our people, for our gang.
Economic resources for our people.
Economic resources for our people, for our gang. You don't have to be afraid to say it because you have to feel it. If you don't feel it, you can fight for it. If you don't feel it, you got to stop the ground and feel it in every fiber of your body. because that's what the fight is about. We have to create a better future for our children. No one is going to do it for us. We're going to set up and do it for ourselves. Power to the people.
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 We're going to stand united no matter what color you are, but understand humanity is what we're fighting for. Humanity is what we're fighting for. Economic justice is what we're fighting for. Participatory democracy, one man, one woman, one vote. One man, one woman, one vote. That is what we are asking for. We do not need an electoral college. We do not need the State Department to tell us the result of our election. We don't need the State Department to tell us when to organize a referendum for our constitution. People united
Will never be defeated.
I can hear you. A people united
will never be defeated.
A people united
Will never be defeated.
A people united.
Will never be defeated.
What we are dealing with in Haiti, it is not just Haiti. Africa is having the same issues. Right here in Washington, D.C., we are having the same problem. If you go across the Anacostia River, ask where the hospitals are. Where are the hospitals across the Anacostia River? Where are the good grocery shops from the Anacostia River? You have to go to Maryland or drive over here to Northwest to get some good food. So it is a fight for the people. It is a fight for the people of all races. It is a fight for our human dignity. It is a fight for equality. It is a fight for proper education for our children. You need to understand capitalism has no limit. We, the people, need to set the limit. Capitalism has no limit. Only we, the people, can set the limit. A people united
will never be defeated.
A people united
Will never be defeated.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
You gotta feel it. If you are standing here, you are in solidarity with Haiti. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid. You gotta say it. Say it with everything inside of you. Power to the people.
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 When the U.S. Embassy put out on Twitter with a picture of Joe Biden, Haitians stay home. Don't come. You are not welcome. But guess what? We don't want to come to your place anyway. We want to stay home. So take your dictator, put it in the penitentiary, give us our resources, let us use it for our people. We're going to stay home. We are happy at home. We have what we need to survive. Move your knees off our neck. 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 Move your knees
Off our necks.
down with dictatorship.
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 No to imperialism.
No to imperialism.
No to neoliberalism.
No to neoliberalism.
Education for the people.
Education for the people.
Economic resources for the people.
Economic resources for the people.
A free world for the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Let Haiti be free.
Let Haiti be free.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti breathe.
Let Haiti live.
Let Haiti live.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
And long live Jacques Dessalines. Thank you.
Peace is an anti-imperialist, anti-war, pro-peace organization rooted in the Black radical tradition, recapturing those positions from today's material conditions, right? And today, we're obviously here, as you can read some of the signs, trying to figure out why Black lives don't matter in Haiti. We know they don't matter here, but ostensibly they say they do. But we know they definitely don't matter in Haiti because we looked at the Biden administration, and it's been here, only been here a short time. They've deported more Haitians than Donald Trump's entire administration. But remember, they told you that was harm reduction. There is no harm reduction, only harm reallocation, and they'll sell out the global south anytime they get a chance, right? So it's imperative that us here in the heart of empire come out like this, and we make noise, and we disrupt, and we cause these things so that we can oppose this type of action. Any neo-colonial action disrupting their markets, disrupting their agriculture, disrupting their politics and their self-determination. We have to come together to do that, right? Things like the OAS, the UN, the core group, no Haitians are involved, but they're determining what happens in Haiti. It's madness. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you I got news today that several activists in Haiti that were arrested have been released, that's a win. We want to clap for that. That's a win for sure. Now, Jovenel Moïse has no intention of stepping down, so that's actually just a method of pacifying the people because they know the struggle is intensifying. And when they recognize the struggle is intensifying there, they know it's going to intensify eventually here. So we have to ramp it up, we have to be active, and we have to show our global solidarity. Capitalism, which exploits someone, somewhere, at any time, exists globally. So to oppose it, we have to have a global strategy in that, right? White supremacy, settler colonialism, the imperialist project of the United States. The only way to defeat that is on a global level.
Hey, we say no compromise, no retreat.
No compromise, no retreat.
So, FTP, let's just throw that out there. Period. All right. Okay, y'all. Our rally today falls during a very important weekend in Haitian history. March 29th is the anniversary of the 1987 Haitian Constitution, written after the 1986 overthrow of the brutal Jean-Claude Duvalier dictatorship. The 1987 Constitution was designed to create a socially just, economically free, and politically independent Haitian nation. Those ideals are again in crisis, not least because the United States has been exceedingly hostile to the 1987 Constitution that guarantees social rights, what we in BAP call people-centered human rights for the Haitian people. Father Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the first democratically elected president of the Republic of Haiti, addressed the United Nations General Assembly on September 25th, 1991, and shared what he called the 10 Commandments of Democracy in Haiti, many of which were enshrined in the 1987 Constitution. These included true liberty and democracy, fidelity to human rights, the right to eat and work, the right for the Haitian people to demand what rightfully belongs to them. So in other words, a challenge to colonialism and neocolonialism. Self-defense in the diaspora, an end to state and imperial violence, fidelity to people over profits and plunder, and participatory government representative of all the people. Guess what happened? 9 days after giving this speech, Aristide was ousted from power in a US-backed coup. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, y'all. Because today, the people of Haiti have been demanding freedom from the succession of US-imposed dictators for decades. One such dictator, Jovenel Moïse, refused to leave office February 7th, which marked the end of his term of 4 years after an illegal election. This move catapulted yet another intense episode in the historic struggle of the Haitian masses against colonial intervention. Tens of thousands of Haitians went to the streets, and are still in the streets, demanding democracy and an end to dictatorship. And what has been the response to these protests? Bullets, paramilitary terror, curfews, house raids, beatings, and also imprisonment of opposition leaders. So again, we say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. With the election of US President Joe Biden, folks believe that the so-called champion of fair elections and the rule of law, who had expressed a commitment to Black Lives Matter, would rally to the side of the Haitians and end US support for the dictatorship. Did that happen? No. Hell no, it did not happen. When Moïse announced he would stay in office past February 7th and continue to rule by decree, the Biden administration signaled its support for that decision. Moïse ruled by decree, and this was made possible because elections were postponed in 2019, which allowed the mandates of most of the representatives to the National Assembly, that is Haiti's parliament, to expire. So the Haitian parliament and the Haitian Supreme Court have been suspended. So Jovenel Moïse went from an illegitimate rule to now a straight up dictatorship. It did not matter that Moïse ruled by decree, that he violated the rights of his people, and that the majority of the people wanted him gone. What matters to the Biden administration is the purpose Moise served in U.S. plans for the Caribbean and the Latin American region. In other words, the people must be sacrificed for the larger interests of the U.S. imperial project. These interests could not be bothered with the trifle concern about democracy, legitimacy, or the right of the people. Those rhetorical terms are only evoked as expressions of the United States' so-called values when directed at adversaries like Russia, Venezuela, China, Iran, or any other country the United States is actively attempting to destabilize. But those values cannot be allowed to complicate U.S. interests in Haiti, or even in the occupied Black and brown communities within the United States. We asked Joe Biden and his supporters who claim that they care about African and Black people, why does it seem that the lives of African and Black people in Haiti do not matter?
And I say, down with the Moise regime. You say shut it down. The Moise regime.
Shut it down.
The Moise regime.
Shut it down.
The Moise regime.
Shut it down.
The core group.
Shut it down.
The core group.
Shut it down.
The core group.
Shut it down.
Southcom.
Shut it down.
Southcom.
Shut it down.
Africom.
Shut it down.
Africom.
Shut it down.
The whole damn system.
Shut it down.
The whole damn system.
Shut it down.
Now we say shut the whole damn system down because we understand it is a system. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. I'm a middle school teacher, and when I'm telling my students about what's going on in the world, what we can do to try to make some change, they ask, Mr. Nick, what? They don't really call me that, but we're a little bit more strict. We gotta have that revolutionary discipline, right? So, you know, they call me by my last name, but they're like, Mr. Nick, what do we do? I don't understand. Why are we learning about all these other countries? Why are we learning about the rest of the world? We got our own problems here. Many of my students are children of Africa, sons and daughters of Africa. And I say, well, you know, we got the police in Chicago. What are they doing? They're like, well, they're out here killing people. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And what are the police out there doing in Haiti? Like, I don't know. I guess they're doing something kind of similar. Like, yep, there you go, bingo. And who trained those police in Haiti? Well, they say, I don't know. I tell them, it's the U.S. government. All of these things are connected. The struggles in Haiti are the struggles here. And it's interesting because when people ask, what can we do? What are the concrete acts of solidarity that we can have with the people in Haiti? You know, talking about it is good. Thinking about it is better. Thinking about it is good. Talking about it is better. But building organization and building unity and solidarity together, that is the most important thing of all. So, when we say down with Southcom, when we say down with AFRICOM, we mean take down the U.S. imperialist state, build organizations in the United States to make it possible to build movements of solidarity, movements of unity, to struggle against those ills and against U.S. imperialism right here. Our struggle is the same. Our comrades in Haiti are making the cracks in the system that we can exploit possible. I'll tell you what, we're gonna take a goddamn jackhammer to those cracks, open them up and rip down this imperialist system brick by brick.
Yeah! The Black Alliance for Peace seeks to recapture and redevelop the historic anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-peace positions of the Black radical movement. We fundamentally oppose militarized domestic state repression, the policies of destabilization and subversion abroad, and the permanent war agenda of the United States globally. The reason we're here today in front of the Haitian consulate is simple. We stand in solidarity with the Haitian people against the corrupt and illegitimate regime of Jovenel Moise, which is propped up by the Joseph R. Biden administration, the United Nations, and the Organization of American States. This is amidst some of the highest rates of mass deportation of Haitians in America. We understand the connections between the imperial occupation of Haiti and the police occupation supported right here in Chicago by Lori Lightfoot. And her people, her anti-people, her anti-poor, and pro-police politics throughout the U.S. more broadly. Just like we can't breathe here in the United States because of militarized police forces that continue to brutalize, suffocate, and murder with impunity, neither can the people of Haiti breathe as their sovereignty, self-determination, and livelihoods are snuffed out by the pan-European forces like the Core Group, the United Nations, and the International Monetary Fund. The Haitian people have taken to the streets because they demand rule by the people and for the people. They have organized a general strike because they demand economic and material conditions that support their needs and livelihoods, and not the profits and enrichment of the global elite. Their struggle is connected to the labor struggles here in the United States, like what's going on currently in Bessemer, Alabama, organizing for an Amazon union. BAP is here today despite the wind and the cold, because we see that the protests of our Haitian brothers and sisters and siblings against the Moises government are intimately linked to the End SARS campaign in Nigeria, to the struggle to end French domination in Senegal, and the corruption to the Ugandan people's demand to end the Museveni dictatorship. Notably, the Ugandan people, that is, and not so-called opposition leaders who are in cahoots with the United States State Department. To getting Africa Command, otherwise known as AFRICOM, off the continent, and especially out of the Horn of Africa, and to demand the end to brutal sanctions against Venezuela, Iran, Zimbabwe, and other racialized countries that choose to reject U.S. imperialism. BAP is also here today because we understand the U.S. funding and training of the Haitian police forces that are determined to undermine protests is linked to the United States 1033 program that militarizes local police departments so they can defend property and the interests of the ruling elites against poor, working, oppressed, and marginalized peoples. We know that this process is linked to the prison industrial complex that confines and tortures political prisoners like Rhamier Auguste, Mulatu Shakur, Sundiata Akoli, Iman Jamil Al-Amin, Reverend Joy Powell, and Russell Maroon Shotes. We say free them all. And this also means freeing all Africans from the yoke of U.S. imperialism. That's right. At Black Alliance for Peace, we say no compromise, no retreat. No retreat. Because unlike the petty bourgeois Negroes who take every opportunity to compromise with the ruling elite and to oppress and repress us, we will never compromise with U.S. imperialism, colonialism, neo-colonialism, and warmongering and capitalist exploitation. Unlike the liberals who think that just because Donald Trump is out of office that we can no longer have anything to struggle for and struggle against, we will never retreat from any holding of the U.S. administration accountable for their crimes against humanity, even when they confuse us with intersectional imperialism and identity reductionism. In the spirit of Fred Hampton, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. In the spirit of the freedom fighter Al McCall Cabral, who told us, tell us no lies and claim no easy victories. In the words of Ella Baker, who said, remember, we are not fighting for the freedom of Negroes alone, but for the freedom of the human spirit, a larger freedom that encompasses all mankind. We protest in the belly of the beast, in the heart of the empire, in the tentacles of U.S. imperialism, funded by our taxpayer dollars that brutalize Africans, oppress and poor people throughout the world, here and at home. Today, we stand with the Haitian people, not because they need us to free them, because the Haitian people, since at least 1791, have proven they are more than capable of liberating themselves. But it is our responsibility as African peoples, as anti-imperialists, as anti-war activists, and as believers in the self-determination and people-centered human rights to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace, y'all. Peace. Greetings to all oppressed people. Revolutionary greetings to all those involved in the struggle. My name is Rhamier Auguste. I'm with the Black Alliance for Peace, and I'm going to read a statement on our behalf. On February 7, 2021, Jovenel Moise's term as president of Haiti ended, but with the support of the Biden administration, he is refusing to leave office. This has created an urgent crisis in the country. A mass movement reminiscent of the 1986 popular movement that overthrew the brutal US-sponsored dictatorship of Jean-Claude Baby Doc Duvalier is demanding Moise step down. We are alarmed by the abundance of evidence of severe human rights violations by the Moise regime to quell the protests. One of the main calls from the mobilizations of hundreds of thousands in the streets of Port-au-Prince and across Haiti has been for the United States, United Nations, and the Organization of American States to stop their interference. These bodies, as part of the core group of imperialist nations and institutions targeting Haiti, are currently pushing a rewrite of the Haitian Constitution through a referendum on April 25. These organizations have a long history of neo-colonial intervention in Haiti and the region. Ever since the democratically elected president Jean-Bertrand Aristide was overthrown for a second time by a US-sponsored coup in 2004, Haiti has been occupied by a United Nations force that, at its height, deployed 14,000 troops and personnel. This occupation has changed from over the years, from MINUSTAH to BINA, but it is ongoing. The US government has consistently stood as a barrier to popular democracy in the Americas. The 2009 coup in Honduras, the 2019 coup in Bolivia, and the ongoing blockades of Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela are but several examples of the US's poor record on human rights and lack of respect for sovereignty in the region. By its own admission, the State Department works closely with the OAS, UN, and the Caribbean community, CARICOM, and individual countries to advance its policy goals in Haiti. Under the guise of fighting drug trafficking, the US continues to train and fund the Haitian National Police. The US establishment spin doctors seemingly live in an alternate universe, claiming the remarkable lack of popular response to calls for mass protests in recent weeks indicates that Haitian people are tired of endless lockdowns and squabbling over power. The reality is quite the opposite. The Haitian people are united in their call for a peaceful transition to democracy. With that said, we say no to dictatorship in Haiti, down with US imperialism, woo, and all power to the people. Woo. No compromise, no retreat. Thank you.
Woo. Thank you. It's